In this lesson, we'll be reviewing how to generate a website using Adobe Dreamweaver and creating a couple of web pages with some common elements on those pages. I've actually got a finished version of the exercise in front of us right now, so I'm going to demonstrate that in the browser. I'm going to go over down here and just select the browser to show that in, and I think I'll choose Safari for this one. And what we have here is our web page with an H1 title, then an H2 subtitle, if you will, then a paragraph. Within that paragraph, I'm going to get you to create some bold text, as well as a section with some italic text that you can see here. And then after the paragraph, I'd like you to generate an ordered list, meaning it will have numbers, and have a minimum of 3 list items. And then below that, an image with a specified size of 800 by 450 pixels. You will supply your own imagery for this, whether they're found images or images that you've created. Whatever the case, I'd like you to go into Photoshop and create an image 800 by 450 pixels to go in here. And you'll notice when I cursor over it that it does change, indicating that it is a link. So I do want you to create a link as well to an external website. In this case, I've just linked to my own website, as you can see here. And I'll click back there. And then below that, I'd like you to create a link to a second page. I'll click on it and show that to you. Very simple page. I've just called it page2.html. Again, with your name in an H1 tag. And it's simply a hypertext link back to the page, happened to be called index.html. So we'll link back to there. And this is where the main building takes place. Now below that link, I'd like you to generate a table with 3 rows, 1, 2, 3, and 2 columns. And on the bottom row, I'd like you to create a row span, meaning connect them together to make what looks like a single table cell. So it looks like you have 5 table cells. 4 with the image, and I want you to create this image as well. I would recommend just making a smaller version of what you have up here, maybe adding some color like I did here, but I'll leave that up to you. But I want them all to be, I believe, 100 or 200 by 100 pixels. You'll have to check the specifications, but I believe that's the size of these, and have 4 images in those table cells and just a span with a background color. Finally, at the bottom, a link to an ID within the page. So I've actually attached an ID to this H1 tagged title here. And you have to be able to scroll to see this work. So if I scroll past the top, I can link here by clicking there, and it does advance me to that spot. So there is sort of a secret hidden anchor created by applying an ID attribute to the H1 opening tag. And I'm going to build all of this so you can watch me build all of this. And then the last thing here, a very simple CSS external style sheet, is affecting the color of the top area as well as the color of this paragraph and the color of this little span. And I'm going to show you how you can create all of those and apply CSS styles to those. So we're just doing one selector style for the H1 tags on the page, and then one class style that actually has to be applied within the HTML code. And I think we'll just call this, let me see here, maybe a just dot color change or something like that. Okay, so this is what you will have on your final page. This is what it will look like in the browser. And again, you'll have a second page with a very simple title with H1 tags and a link back to this page. So let me go back over to Dreamweaver and we'll get this going. Okay, so at this point we'll start the new site from scratch. I just want to point out my files panel over here, the directory structure if you will. We're going to have to start a new site, which means we actually have to create a folder ahead of time which will act as our root folder. So I've already done that. If I pop over to my desktop here, I'll just hide Dreamweaver for a second. I've got a folder here that I'm going to use. This is actually my finished folder that we're looking at right here, but this is the one I prepared to start again. So what you'll have to do is create a folder. I suggest naming it your last name _ root. I'm just keeping mine on my desktop, but you can tuck yours wherever you need to. And inside of there, create two subfolders, one called Images and one called CSS. And inside of Images, you'll be placing your pre-created 5 images that you'll need for the web page. So having set that up, I'm prepared to go into Dreamweaver now and generate a new site. So let me just pop over to Dreamweaver here. Okay, and I will start a new site. So I'll keep this stuff open as a reference, but I'm starting with a new site. And actually, before I even do that, I'd like to have access to my properties panel. So up here, I am on standard right now. I can't set reset standard, but I believe it's already on standard. I do want to have my properties panel as I said. So I'm going to go up to Window, Properties, and it appears floating. I'm just going to nest it down at the bottom here. So you can drag the top bar and just carefully, when I see that little blue line appear, it means it will nest it right there. So now it's tucked in underneath the code, which is underneath the image. Another very important thing I'm going to bring to your attention is that we're going to work in design mode. I do want you to have your split screen. I think that's the best with the design view as well as the code view. But make sure you're in design mode here versus live. Depending on the version you're working on, it may default to live automatically. Now, it's okay to go to live, but we're going to work in design mode for the first several exercises to achieve what we need to. And if you want to click on live, it's a bit of like a preview, but the best preview is actually inside of a web browser. Okay, so having said all that, you can see my directory structure over here. I'm going to start a new site. So I do have my properties panel tucked in here. Site, new site. Now here, all we need to do is give it a name that will appear in the list. So I'm just going to call this Review Web 2 Dan, because I already had one called Review Web 2. And then the important part is to go and click on the Browse for folder and find that root folder that was already created. Now mine's on my desktop. Remember I said it's this one here, Ouellette _ root. Click Choose and click Save. And you should see that update in your Files panel. And I'm just waiting for mine here. There we go. So there's not much in there right now, but I can see the directory structure. So what I need to do is start, I'm going to say start both HTML files right away and save them immediately. That actually is critical, to create it right away and save it immediately. So I've got one called index.html and the other one will be called page2.html. So let's start by creating a new file. File new. And here you have the opportunity to give your page a title. So I'm going to say your last name _ lesson number. Now I'm not sure which one this is, so I'm going to take a guess and say 1B. But whatever it is, that will be the title of the page. And just leave it at its default HTML. Click Create. Now it's created, but it has not been saved yet, and that's what's very important. So right away, before doing anything, go Save As, and you'll get a window that pops up. Now, if you're not sure, click on Site Root. That will put it in the folder that you're looking at over here in the panel, and name it index.html. Now that that's saved, number one, you will see it appear over in the panel here, but two, all your links will appear as relative links in the code, which is critical in our situation here. It does affect other things as well, such as your CSS and so on. So now we have a blank index file. You know what? Just to cut to the chase, I'm going to create the second file and then come back to this file. So let's just get sort of the HTML creation out of the way. File new, HTML. I'll just call this last name _ page2. And let me just correct this to an underscore. There we go. Click Create. And again, it's just temporarily created. You actually have to do a save or a save as. So I'm going to go Save As. Once again, I can see I'm in the root, but if you just want to be sure, click Site Root. And I'll call this page2.html. Okay, so now I have my basic site existing, if you will. There's no content in those pages, but they actually exist now. And you'll notice tabs at the top here. So I'm going to go back to index.html, and we'll start from the start of the top of the content. Now I do have this list on a specs link, but you might be able to go by this video. So we're going to start with just an H1. So we need to make use of our insert tab over here. You can also go insert from up here, but I'm going to primarily use the panel over here. Okay, so I'm currently on my index.html file, split view, design mode. Very important to be in design mode. Okay, and let me click on my insert tab. Now if I need to expand these windows to customize my view, then I can do so by grabbing these handles. Okay, so the first thing I want to do is simply an H1, a heading 1, and define and just spell my name. So you can see over here, we do have a list here. If I click the little arrow, I can see my different headings. So I just select H1. Undo that. And just click inside the design view first. I had been clicked inside. I was actually, was kind of a mistake, but I'm glad it came up. I was inside of my code view with my cursor, and it happened to be at the beginning of the code view. So I want to click inside of the design view. That's sort of what I'm emphasizing right now. Click inside of the design view. You should see your cursor flashing at the top. And as we say one more time with feeling, I want to insert a heading 1. So it inserts it there. You can see it in the code, so I'm just going to start to type my name and try to spell it correctly. Okay, so there it is, and you can see how it just automatically comes in. I'm just clicking inside of my design view, establishing what I'm inserting, which was the H1 tag, and starting to type. And if you look in the code view, there it is right there. H1 tags surrounding my name. So if I want to keep working in design view, I do need to come back here. Okay, because you can conceivably type in code as well. If you're familiar with code, you can work a number of ways in Dreamweaver, but today we're going to sort of emphasize the design window. So the next thing I want to do is an H2 insert. So I'm going to hit return, just like I'm in, say, Microsoft Word or something, and it creates a new line, and it temporarily creates a paragraph, if you see here, but once I go insert H2, it will replace that with H2 tags, as you see there. And I'm just going to cheat here and see what I typed in. Okay, web authoring 2 review exercise. So let's try that. Web authoring 2 review exercise. Okay, and I didn't make any typos. All right, so you can see a little bit of the difference. This is a bit bigger than that as a result. So I'm going to hit return again. And this one will simply be a paragraph. So by default, when I hit return in design view, it automatically creates my p tags with what's called a non-breaking space, which is really like a space, you know, like if you hit your space bar, and it's a bit of a placeholder. So I'm just going to type here, this is a paragraph, and hit a period and a space, and then you know what, I'm going to just cheat and select that, copy it. So I'm on a Mac, Command C, but it'd be Control C, copy on a PC. Just paste it back in, Control V, and then keep pasting. I'm just going to say, you know, put in maybe 20 of these or 30, just so you have this simulation paragraph. Okay, and I think that's good enough. And one thing I need to do, which I should have been doing more frequently, is to save my file. Okay, so we've got 3 elements on the page, an H1 element, an H2 element, and a paragraph element. Let me again hit my return key, clicking in the design view. And if you want to see more code, you can adjust your windows here, but you can see all the code. So if you love working with code, you're welcome to come down here and start typing it in, pasting it in, whatever the case may be. But I'm going to go back to my design view up here once again. I can see my cursor at the end of the paragraph, so I'm going to hit return. And again, you see it creates a new paragraph. But here I want to create a list. So I'm going to create a list, and I'll show you how we can do it in Dreamweaver. We start by just typing in the line information as paragraphs. So I'm just going to say this is line 1 of my list, and then I'm going to hit return. This is line 2 of my list, hit return. This is line 3 of my list. Okay, so it's not a list yet. Here's how we create a list. You will need your properties panel for this, so that's why I have it open. I'll just also point out there are two tabs, HTML and CSS. Make sure it's still on HTML. So once we've created these 3 lines, which are currently paragraphs, just highlight them all, select them all like that, and then in your properties you can actually create a list this way. I'm going to show you both ways actually. There's the ordered list and unordered list through properties, and I kind of misled you. You don't absolutely need the properties windows for this. You can do it in the insert window as well. So old school, we always did it this way, so my habits lean that way. However, I'm going to use the insert panel for this as well. So with that selected, I click ordered list, and lo and behold, it converts the whole thing to an ordered list, as you can see. Now the cool thing here again in design view is if I click at the end of line 3, if I hit return, it actually adds another list item. So this is list item 4. And the way to get out of that in design view is you just hit return twice. So I can hit there, but if I hit twice, then it starts another new paragraph. So let me just save that again. Save. Now the next step here will be to insert an image. So I'm clicking again inside of my design view just to make sure my insert is in design view. And I'm going to go over to insert and click on image. Now this is where it was critically important that my image was already in my images folder and that this file was saved at least once before doing this move. So I'm clicking on image now, insert image. And it is in my images folder, but let's say you're not sure where you're at. You can click options and click site root, and that takes you to your root folder, and you can just ensure that you are in the right place for this. So inside of my images folder, as I said, I have some images already, and I want to insert the one called car GTO. So I click that and click open, and there it is. Now I also want to create a link to an external website when I click on this image. So I'm going to do that right away. With it currently still selected, go down to my properties, and I'll just manually type it in. You could copy it, paste it from a browser, but I'm going to just type in http colon, actually let me put an S at that, https colon / and just go to my website, djolessons.com, and then hit your enter key for that. So that is now a link, and you can also see that in the code view here. So inside of a paragraph, I've got my link here, and it's created a link surrounding that image right there. Okay, so good time to save again. I can see the asterisk there, which means I have not saved to the latest change. So I'll just go File, Save. Okay, so we're getting there. So let me just go to my other finished file and just check what else I need to put in here. Okay, so I'm going to create another hypertext link to an internal web page, if you will. So let's go back here. Again, if I click here, I can see my cursor flashing. Now let's say my image was still selected. I can hit my right arrow key to advance my flashing cursor, hit my return key, and now I'm on a new line with a new paragraph waiting for content, if you will. So I'm just going to type link to page 2. Let me just correct my spelling here, link to page 2, and you can select that. In the design view, select it. And under links, in my properties, I can click browse for file. And I want to link to page 2. Again, I'm in my root, but if you're not sure, you can click options and site root and select the file you wish to link to, page2.html open. Again, let me save that. And you can see here that it is now a link. And you can see it here with the default blue with the underline. Okay, so the next thing I think we want to do is create a table. And I'm just going to go to my cheat sheet here. Yes, so we're going to create a table, 2 columns, 3 rows, if you will. So again, clicking at the end of that link in the design view, I'm going to hit my return key. And also on my insert, I'm going to insert a table. So once I click insert table, a little dialog box appears and it wants me to specify. So I had already done this, so it's remembering the presets, but 3 rows, 2 columns, 400 pixels wide is good because my images will each be 200 pixels wide, so that adds up to 4. I did leave a border thickness of 1. If you type in 0, your border will be invisible. And I'm going to leave padding and spacing alone, but that is the space that goes inside of the frame, and this is the space that goes outside of the frame to leave some breathing space. Okay, so 3 rows, 2 columns, 400 pixels wide. I click OK. And I'm just scrolling up here. And I've got 6 table cells. Now I want to insert an image inside of each of these. And I also want to combine these 2 table cells together. So let's start with what's called a row span by combining 2 table cells and making them unite into one. You do need to be in design mode to do this. Okay, so if you're in live mode, switch back to design mode here. And it's pretty simple. You also need to have your properties panel available to you. So what we do is we click in this first cell and just literally drag across to highlight them both. And down here there's a tiny little button in the properties called row. Merge selected cells using spans. You click that and there you have a merged table cell. Now I'm going to change the background color as well while I'm down here in the table cell section. So let's just create, I'm going to create something that's kind of orange similar to the car, like that, and hit my return key. There you have it. Okay, so we have a spanned row with a background color. Again, a good time to save. Now I just want to insert some images into each of these. So I can click inside of the table cell. Image. Now these are also prepared in Photoshop beforehand, sized at 200 by 100 pixels. So I'll start with car orange. Open. And you might notice that it does push the dividers of the table cells. You can go in and grab these and manually drag them around. And you'll notice the measurement units appear above. So I'm just going to click in the table cell to the right of that and add another photo. So I'll just go down the list here, car green. Okay, and I'll do the same for the next row down. Clicking inside, then clicking the insert image button. And we've got one more here. Insert image, car red. Okay, definitely want to save that. So again, mostly working in the design window today. Last thing I want to do is a link to another section. It's not the last thing, but the last HTML thing. Let's put it that way. We will add a little CSS shortly. I do want to have another link at the bottom that will basically push my page back to the top. So the way we do that is we attach an ID to an element. So I'm going to manually attach that ID to the H1 tag. So if I click inside of here, it does take me to that section in the code. I'm going to do it manually inside of the opening tag. So I'm going to type in here, type a space, and you can see you have code hints actually happening in there. I'm just going to attach an ID. ID equals, and we put that in quote marks. I'm just going to call it top. Very short and sweet. Close the quote marks. So there's an ID attached to this tag called top. So I can basically make a link to the ID called top, and it should advance me to that spot on the page. So let's scroll down now and do the second part. So I'm clicking down below here, and I'm going to say link to top. Then I will select that text. go down to my link. Now the way we create a link is, rather, the way we create a link internally to a page element is by using a hashtag. So I'm going to type in hashtag top and hit my enter key. All right, so you see href equals quote marks hashtag top. So let's test this. I'm going to do a save. And if this all works, then the HTML is done. We're going to do a little CSS. So I'll just preview this. Let's see. I already have Safari open, so let me preview that in Safari. So you do need to have the page scrollable to test that link at the bottom. But you can see all of your elements. And if I click the link to the top, it should push me down, and it did. So let me try these other two links quickly here. That links to my website, and this one should link to page 2, which I currently have not put any content on, so maybe we'll do that quickly now. Okay, so let's go back to Dreamweaver. And page 2, let's just add an H1 with our name. H1, and I'll type in my name. Okay, hit return, type in link to index, then highlight that, and actually go down to my links, and I should see it appear here. Actually, I don't see it appear here. Oh, these are just things that were previously put in. That's what that is. Okay, so I'll go to my browse for file the usual way, and just double click on index or single click and click open. All right, it should turn blue and show you the underline. Just do a save and test. So I can go back to my browser. The nice thing about working from Dreamweaver, when you go to your browser, it automatically updates, or it should, as I can see here. All right, so if I go there and link to page 2, I have a back and forth. Okay, so that's the majority of our HTML review for today, but we're going to add a little CSS, and this is a very critical part. So that'll be the next and final step, if you will, in building this page. Okay, so let's pop over to our index file. That's where we want to apply a little bit of CSS, namely to this H1 heading, and some color to the paragraph, and maybe to a spanned piece of text. Okay, so let me pop over to the Files panel quickly and just show you the structure. I do have a folder called CSS. That's where I want to save the file. So the way we create an external style sheet is through the CSS Designer tab. And you'll notice here we have a section called Source, then Media, Selectors, and Properties. We kind of work downwards on this. We start by establishing a source. I can either click this link here or the plus. And I'm going to click the plus sign, and you see a little list. I'm going to say create a new CSS file. And I want to save it in that CSS folder, so I'm going to browse to it right now. And I'd previously been there, so it looks like it took me there. But if you're not sure where you are, click on Site Root and then go from there. Okay, so I've double clicked on CSS. I'll give it a name now. I'm going to give it my last name. And you don't need to type in the .css. That will get generated. So click Save and click OK. So I've just generated an external CSS style sheet. There's nothing in it yet, but the file does exist. And I can see the name right here. And let's just go and confirm that in our files quickly. And you see there it is nested inside of that folder. So that just proves that it's where it should be and that it exists. Okay, so let's now create a couple of quick styles. One I want to create for the H1 tag. So if I go down to selectors here, I can manually create them by clicking the plus sign. And if something is selected on the screen, it will probably automatically try to reference that, but let's just overwrite this and type in H1 and hit my enter key. And then we move on to the next box called properties. So we have this little checkbox called show set. I don't have any properties yet for that, so my set is actually empty. If I want to see all of my options, I need to turn off show set, which is what I will do. And then you can see sort of 5 main categories here. I really just want to deal with the text color, so I'm going to click on the text. And these all scroll, by the way. You can access them all through scrolling, but this just advances you to there. And under color, I'm just going to define a red, I guess. I'll just pick red here. And if I wanted to save that, I can hit the plus sign for future use. Hit my return key. So now anything with H1, as you see here live, will get those properties. So we're just attaching a color to anything that has H1 tags. Now you can also see up here, there's a little tab for my style sheet. And if I click on that, I can actually see it in my code view, and I can actually go in and manually type in or change things if I so desired. This is my source code, my HTML, and this is my attached CSS file. Now you see the asterisks. That means it has not been saved up until the latest changes. So the way we save both the style sheet and the file code is we go File, Save All. Very important. I would say get in the habit of simply choosing Save All every time you save. And that will save it. And you see the asterisk disappeared, which means that file is now saved. So now we currently have one selector style. Let's create what we call a class style, which would have to be applied secondly in the code. So you wouldn't see it automatically manifest when we make it, but let's just create one and we'll call it purple text, I guess. So I'm going to go up to my selectors here and add a new one. And to create a class style, it's very critical you start with a period. Dot purple text. Okay, I'm going to hit my enter key, my return key, and now I can apply some properties. I'm just going to apply the one unique property, which is purple text. So I'll go to my text section and choose a color that looks like purple. And again, if I want to save that as a swatch, I can click that plus sign, then hit my return key to accept that. Now you don't see anything yet. It actually has to be applied. And I'll show you how you can apply that now in your design view. I will do a save all first though. Save all. Okay, so like clicking back into my design view over here. I want to apply it to this paragraph here. So I'm going to click inside that paragraph. And in my HTML, or rather at the bottom of my view, I have what's called a tag selector. It's not critical that you do this, but I think it's a good practice after clicking inside of the desired tag to actually select that tag, which is the P tag. And you see how it selects the whole body. That tells you what you're affecting. Now, in my properties, I have a section called class. So any class that I have created in that external sheet will appear in this list. And there it is, purple text. And you can even see it manifest the color. Purple text. Boom. So let me show you what that looks like in the HTML code. You do see it here added inside of the CSS, dot purple text, curly brackets, and the definition. Under source code, let me show you what happened in here. P class equals purple text right there. So again, conceivably you could manually do this, but it's so much quicker just using your design view. So I'm going to do one last application of that class style. I'm going to apply it to a span, if you will, which means a designated selection of items within an element. So I'm just going to say this text here, my list. Highlight it there. Go down to class, purple text. What that does is generates a span tag, as you can see down here, and it attributes the class dot purple text, and you can actually see it inside of your tag selector view. And if I click away here, you can see it manifests. So we just need to do a save all and just one quick test in the browser just to be sure, but that is our assignment as a review using Adobe Dreamweaver to create a simple HTML page, an even simpler second page, and a little bit of CSS inside of an external style sheet. So let's just quickly take a look at that in Safari. There we have it, styled up, good to go. So this is what I want you to create for me today as your review exercise.